Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the week 16 waiver wire. We're almost there. Semi-final week for a lot of us. I will be here into week 18 as well. I will not ignore you folks who go just 1 week too long with your fantasy playoffs. And with that said, a lot of injuries this week. So if you'd like to follow up on one of the an injured player of yours and see how likely it is that they might come back, this chart here should give you a pretty decent idea of that. Go right ahead and pause. We got a crazy cat walking all over the place. Got her tail in screen. But here's all of the new injuries if you want to get a good idea based on the information that we have so far and based on average time of recovery from these injuries. This is how long I think that you can expect them to be out. Some good news here. Jalen Hurts did suffer a broken ring finger, I believe it is. I'm not sure which hand. For some reason, I feel like that might have been an offhand thing, but I'm not positive. Either way, said that it did impact him. He finished the game, played through the finger injury. So I do anticipate that he'll still be playing, but obviously we want to keep an eye on that. Joe Mixon, ankle injury. A.J. Brown, ankle injury. Both of them came out fine, both in quotes, the terminology fine was used. One from the coach saying Joe came out fine, one from A.J. Brown himself saying that he felt fine with his ankle. So hopefully those are not major. Those are, I believe, both quotes from a day later. So that's good. They were able to sleep on him and swelling didn't get so insane that all of a sudden we're looking at week-to-week types of injuries there, based on the sounds of things. Unfortunately, on the other end of the spectrum, Nick Chubb, David Montgomery, it looks like both are going to be gone for the rest of the season. So that's absolutely no bueno, but that does open some things up on the waiver wires as well that we will be looking into. So just a reminder, this is really just a quick supplemental video for you in order to be available in case you are not able to make it to or don't want to, come join me live tonight, about 8 o'clock usually. I go live only for like an hour and a half, so I'm not incredibly available either, which is another reason why to make this video. But I'm there for any personalized information. These the players that I'm going to be suggesting are players that are owned in less than 50% of fantasy football leagues. So there's definitely chances for some players to be available on your waiver wire that don't make my list that I would suggest over guys on my list. And maybe you're wondering about those types of questions of, do I like such and such a player more than a guy who I have on the list? Or maybe I don't. And that's what I'm available for, those customized questions. Once again, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that out of the way, let's get to the fun stuff. Quarterbacks, right? We're going to start off there. Got 4 guys here. So the top 2, I think, offer you the best odds at getting something good from them. Jameis Winston going against Cincinnati, coming off of a bad week. That's not good, but it's Cincinnati. So we're pretty excited about that as I continue to yawn through that. And Aaron Rodgers going against the Los Angeles Rams offers a lot of upside for a guy who was at the top of this list last week and absolutely crushed it. And I had him higher than Jameis Winston. These two are both from my list last week. Just moved them on over. Unfortunately, my rankings, I didn't quite get bold enough to have Aaron Rodgers ahead of Jameis Winston. Despite, at this point last week, thinking that I might do that, I didn't. And I wish I'd maybe come back and said, hey, you know what? Before looking at all the numbers, my gut was just Aaron Rodgers. So, it was tough based on what he's done all season long. But now we have 2 weeks in a row of this where this offense seems to have found itself a bit of a groove. Aaron Rodgers, I don't think has played bad all season long. Just things haven't gone well. Still has an iffy ceiling. He can't run the ball. Well, he did somehow this last week. You can't expect that to happen again. I think he had 40 rushing yards. I got to see that run or whatever led to that, because he's got to just look like a crippled man running down the field and somehow nobody's anywhere near him or something. I don't know. I imagine he got a big chunk on one play at least to end up with 40 rushing yards. But, nonetheless, Aaron Rodgers gets a good matchup. Jameis Winston gets a good matchup. Bryce Young, not so much a good matchup this week, but in a couple weeks he gets Tampa Bay, who we're also potentially targeting with Cooper Rush. I know this last week, with my rankings, there was a group that include Cooper Rush, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers, some other guys too, that I said these guys, some of them will do better than this tier that I have above them. Maybe even the other tier, which I think might have been into the Tua tier. Like those, they'll end the week in that tier because of some really good matchups. Like some of them were bound to come through. Some of them did come through. And because of that, now we're thinking maybe Cooper Rush could come through again in this good matchup this upcoming week. But if you want to look ahead, Bryce Young also getting a good matchup if you're in that kind of situation in a couple of weeks. That's to bring us on to the running backs, where the juice is worth the squeeze here. These are the guys who you are putting your primary waiver wires on, and all three of them could end up really helping some teams win some league championships here. Not bad matchups by any means for Kendre Miller, Jerome Ford. Kendre Miller getting Green Bay. Not a great running back matchup, but also statistically not the worst. And Las Vegas right in line with that, really, technically, once again, statistically. Jerome Ford, Cincinnati, just like Green Bay, does offer its reasons that it's not the easiest running back matchup, but also can definitely be has been had throughout the season at times. And Miami, statistically allowing roughly the same amount of fantasy points to running backs as all four of these guys are kind of just in that average to even roughly in that average area. But then we do have Sincere McCormick, who has two good matchups. Not top matchups, but two good matchups in Jacksonville and New Orleans. New Orleans allowing a lot of yards per carry, which really makes me excited for Sincere McCormick against that type of matchup. And then Jacksonville has allowed a lot of fantasy points to running backs as well. So that's why I have Sincere McCormick at the top of this list. If you didn't get him last week, he's still owned in under 50% of ESPN leagues, so maybe he's out there in your league, and that would be great. Kendre Miller has been getting a little buzz, so he might not be available in your league, but Jerome Ford was dropped by a lot of people, and now you find him back in a position where he could help your team. I don't expect, the most, I don't know, it's tough. I take Kendre Miller over Jerome Ford here because of the potential receiving upside in this offense coming into that Kamara role. I mean, he could end up getting a lot of targets just like Kamara had, because where else are those targets going? There's no talent left on that offense, unfortunately. No disrespect to the guys on that offense, just compared to where they started the season, a lot less talented of a unit. That's going to bring us on to the wide receivers. And Cedric Tillman has been sitting at the bottom of this list because I've been trying to prep you, get you prepared for if you had the ability to grab and hold on to Cedric Tillman for these final weeks, especially this week here, going up against Cincinnati, is a really good matchup for him. And it's looking like the coach said he's hopeful that Cedric Tillman will be coming back this week. So if that comes through, great. Obviously not a guarantee, but there's really, I don't think, any great options here for wide receivers. It's still a bunch of guys that you can find, other guys that are on the waiver wire that also will have a chance of producing this next upcoming week. Unlike, Dobbs, Bateman, McMillan, there's far from a guarantee of them performing again a second week in a row. But these are guys coming off of some heaters. They've had solid seasons to some extent. Dobbs, Bateman, especially two guys coming into the year who I definitely thought should be rostered, still under 50% rostered. So obviously I like them. But if I'm looking for some sort of extra spice here in these final two games of the season, I like Cedric Tillman this week the most, and I like Jalen Coker in a couple of weeks going up against Tampa Bay there. Quite a bit coming off of, I think it's a busted play, but hey, 100 yards, a touchdown. I think a target sharing for the target lead there in that offense. There might be something there in a couple of weeks. So that covers the wide receivers. We're flying through this today. We're going to go over to the tight ends. We've got Brenton Strange. Stone Smart could probably make this list too here. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of upside love for that, especially with, I thought it was pretty disappointing that the Los Angeles Chargers offense stalled so hard this past weekend. They're just missing a couple of talent pieces. They're, well-coached team. They came out strong in the beginning of the year, but I think they've just plateaued due to, injury, most of all. I should say injury combined with just a lack of top-end talent. They're still developing things that kind of reset that roster quite strongly. So I'm just not feeling too strong about the upside of that. But, You put Mac Jones in at quarterback, you take probably a roster that's not a whole lot less talented and worse coached, and then you got Brenton Strange. Look, he's in a position that we really liked, getting a lot of targets. Again, this is a pretty neat, talented tight end prospect entering, I think he's in his third year now, maybe second year. And when he's had opportunities, he's done well. So that's why he's just kind of my number one pick. Hopefully you've got the tight end thing figured out. There's been quite a few options throughout the season, but at this point, a lot of them are rostered. So it's slim pickings out there. But I do think Brenton Strange would be worth it. That's going to bring us on to the DSTs. We got the Buffalo Bills, once again, who I've had on here for, I think, the last 2 weeks. Now rises to the top after putting them on here just to kind of get you... trying to get them on your roster ahead of time. Going to be going up against New England, New York Jets, coming off of, obviously, 2 weeks where it wasn't very promising, but we were not trying to play them the last 2 weeks. We knew that those were rough matchups. Now we get a couple of good matchups, at least a good one here. I don't know, the New York Jets, with how that offense is going these days, maybe that's not so good, but I think that they might be able to get enough pressure on Aaron Rodgers to make that a good matchup, too. Either way, for this week, Buffalo's my top pick. Green Bay Packers going up against New Orleans for this week. I like that a lot. And then if I'm forced to pick a third option here, I guess Cincinnati seemed to be the best option going up against Cleveland. So high upside with Jameis Winston, always willing to put balls in danger and throw some picks. That's what you want. And Cincinnati did come off of a good defensive performance this last week. So, hey, maybe they can do it again. Be a surprise, down the stretch helper of playoff teams at this point in the season if you want to take that risk. There you go. That is it. Once again, the running backs, that's where it really is here. Go right ahead, block an opponent from getting one of these guys. I don't know that there's anything else that's like week winning out here. Cedric Tillman holds that potential as well, I would say, outside of these running backs. But besides that, I don't have the most faith in these quarterbacks. Hopefully you've got that figured out. DSTs, hopefully you've got that figured out, but a couple of decent options there as well. Tight end, like I said, hopefully you don't have to do that. But a lot of injuries this last week, so there's going to be room on some of your rosters. Those are the guys I like. And once again, feel free to come and visit me tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and ask me any questions. And you can, get into more detail there, too, with the question about your roster and what I think is more important for it. And we can always look ahead to next week as well, in some instances, more so than I did here in this video. Thank you very much for tuning on in, and I'll see you soon. Peace out. Meow.